Hi there, welcome to Beyond Domestic Violence, Trauma Transformer. Grace Hart here. And today's podcast is really all about, are you actually sad, bad, evil and wrong, angry, depressed? Or are you in fact releasing trauma through a post-traumatic body response? Now, this was a big aha light bulb moment when I was going through counselling to assist with domestic violence that I have been experiencing during an intimate relationship. And it was huge for me. I thought that when you're feeling something, it belongs to you. And I didn't realise, not only did I think it belonged to me, I actually thought that it was in current time. In other words, if I'm sad now, it's because something sad is happening. And so, for example, if I'm out and about, and I didn't realise, now you can call it triggers, but back then I didn't realise, you're out and about and all of a sudden you're just feeling wrong or feeling sad or depressed or empty or angry or irritable or snappy or whatever it is that how it displays for you. For me, it was a sense of just wrongness. And I'd wake up and I'd just feel wrong, like I was wrong. I was a walking wrongness, And I just assumed it was either because of, something I was experiencing then in that moment. Maybe someone said something or I heard something or I saw something and I was just reacting to that. It never occurred to me that my body was releasing a post-traumatic event. Now, this can happen for a lot of reasons, and trauma is complex, and I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing with you something that I learned in my counselling that may invite you to go and speak to somebody if it's going on for you too, or if you see other people reacting that way. Because you might see someone who's so sad or crying or angry, and you would just naturally assume that's in their world right now. It's real right now. You may not think, this has got nothing to do with their reality right now. It's a post-traumatic response. So we've all heard, I think we can safely say, the majority of you anyway have heard about post-traumatic stress. And the best example is what we have traditionally received it as, with someone who's gone to war and had a horrific experience. And now, for example, when they hear a gunfire or a loud noise that sounds like gunfire, it takes them immediately back to that time, and they just think they're there. They don't realise that they are in present time and they're in a completely different place. And depending on the severity of the post-traumatic injury, you may not even be able to see whilst you're having it that a person is a person. In other words, you might, if your injury was it happened with you being as a policeman on the force. And let's say a particular person fired at you, you were shot and almost killed. And so now that person, what that person looks like, the environment can trigger you into thinking that even if it's happening in real time, you will see that person that shot you, not the civilian that's trying to help you. So it's the same with all sorts of trauma that have been drip, 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 creating that chronic post-traumatic stress, or it could be a one-off experience that you had that was life-threatening. So you're having your day, everything's fine, and all of a sudden you're just feeling so sad. And the first thing we do is buy that sadness as real and true right now because you're feeling it. It must be true. However, if you're willing to ask the question, actually, am I sad right now? Or is my body having a post-traumatic response? And if it's actually like a lightness, like, actually it feels more true, feels correct that I'm not actually sad, it's my body that's having a post-traumatic response of sadness. And, Peter Levine talks about that our bodies, we hold trauma. And our bodies are always looking to release that trauma. So, for example, I had a very bad car accident, and there are certain sounds of gravel There are certain colours, how the day was, certain smells, that if I hear one or two of those things, I can travel back to that moment. My heart will race. I'll feel, all the things that potentially I felt at the time of the accident. Same as, you can remember a smell or the song that was playing, or if it was raining when, or sunny when something happened, whether it was good or bad. So if you can imagine, if you've had any trauma and it's locked in your body and your body recognizes a certain smell or a certain noise or a certain behavior outside, and that could just be watching a movie that has the same lighting or has the same sound of the voice of the person that raped you, for example. You don't know any of this. You think you've dealt with it. And then all of a sudden you're feeling terror and you're like, why am I feeling this? So going back to that question, if you get the answer, actually, yeah, my body's releasing sadness or my body's releasing anger from a past experience, that can really help. So for example, let's say you're in a relationship and all of a sudden you're just really irritable to this person that you love. And you ask, is this a post-traumatic body response from, so post is past. And you get a yes. Then look at doing some body work to release that trauma. I do have a weekly Zoom, and it's just $5 to $15 depending on your financial situation, where we go into tips, tools and techniques to assist with this. But I strongly also suggest getting someone to talk to that's specialised in trauma release and who's trauma aware. Now, the opposite can be true. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to that scenario that you're having a post-traumatic body response, but it's actually coming from something that's happening right now. So let's say your partner got angry at you or is abusive at you, or you found yourself in a situation where, there is danger. So you're still going to have that response, but that is more so about, we talked about the petal and the parts. So you're the flower, you're in the center of the flower. Center of the flower is your very beingness. And yes, you're connected to your parts, and some of those parts are disassociative or dysfunctional at the time. However, when you're in the center of the flower and someone's being abusive, you have all the space and all the ability and all the possibilities to create change with that. However, what tends to happen if you've received trauma is that anything that sounds like the abuse that you had in the past, one of your disassociative or disenfranchised parts, petals, will hijack. And all of a sudden you're back in your primal brain, you're back in your survival brain, you don't have access to possibilities, and you're just in survival to get away, to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that's that's what you're dealing with. So what I would love you to become aware of is every time you're feeling anything, as I always suggest, is asking, is this a part? Is this an internal critic? And what I'd love to add to your toolbox today is to ask the question, is my body having a post-traumatic response? Because sometimes your partner isn't being abusive to you, or, you're not sad or depressed. Nothing's actually created that. It's just a response to the trauma that you've had in the past, and your body is either A, choosing to let go of a trauma, it realizes it's safe and secure and so it can release it, or you've been triggered by something that it's recognized. As an example, I think I've given this before, if you went into a forest, stepped on a stick and got bitten by a snake and ended up nearly dying because of that. Anytime that you have that offered, whether it's to walk in a forest or you step on a stick, there's a part of you that can have that response. Now, a normal, healthy person, if they stepped on a stick, got bitten by a snake, and didn't receive that as a traumatic experience, it was just an unfortunate event and, well done body for getting over that, they won't have a problem with it. But if you've received trauma and you are susceptible to all the energies of post-traumatic stress, etc., Anytime someone just says forest, stick, snake, there's a good chance that one of your parts will hijack you, or you'll at least feel it. So to make it as clear as I can, when you feel anything, firstly, assess your environment. Is there a threat? Is that person being abusive? Are you at risk? And of course, take all the action that's required. Get help. Call 000 or 911 or wherever it is in your country. However, if you're not in real threat, it's just all of a sudden you're feeling sad, or all of a sudden you're feeling empty or depressed. Ask the question, is this depression? Is this sadness? Is this upset? Is this wrongness a post-traumatic body response? Is my body just releasing this because it's safe now? And if it is, then yes, look into things to do with your body to help you release that trauma. And I highly recommend Peter Levine, his work. But there's lots of, somatic body response things out there. If it is actually that there's something that's happened or happening, maybe someone said something or experienced something, so it's a tangible thing in your real life, current, right now, and you're reacting to it with sadness, then that's when I'd ask, am I actually sad here or depressed, or is that actually a petal? Because a lot of times when we feel something, we think it's ours. And the difference between being hijacked by a petal and being in the center of the flower and aware that there's a part there that's a bit upset can be the difference between you creating a greater life and you creating even more trauma in your life. So please, as much as possible, ask the question, am I in the center of my flower? Yes, I am. Okay. Is that sadness me, or is it just one of my disassociative petals? Oh, it's one of my dissociative petals. Okay. So that means it's a past event. And it's just pressing play, letting me know that there's something in my environment that could be traumatic, or it's realized, oh, we're safe now, so I want to come out and talk to you and say, hey, I'm holding on to this sadness and we need to let this go. And as I said before, the reason why I do love Pete Levine's work is that he speaks very similar to me on that you can't ignore the trauma in your body. If you have pain in your body, pain is letting you know that you have disassociated energies, experiences, stress, trauma parts, however you want to call it. Peter Levine has actually said in his material, pain is where you have disassociated from that particular part. So if you've got a sore tummy, your tummy's no longer yours. Your tummy has been disassociated. There's something in your tummy that's happened, or that it had awareness of, that you just didn't want to know and see. And what he says, and I thoroughly agree, you can't just ignore it, because the body is going to keep on trying to come up with something. It's going to find people, events, circumstances to create a way to release this trauma. And so the kindest way is not to wait till that person's in conflict with you, or you going through court, or you find yourself in a battle with somebody, or a health crisis, right? What if we can now, before it's too late, when we've just got the sensation of tension in the body, or an uncomfortable or dis-ease in the body, and of course if you are suffering from something that's actually showing up physically, so an actual disease, now more than ever, look at releasing trauma, because chances are your body has created that disease so you can release. Whereas if you keep thinking, oh, it's not about the health issue, it's just about my diet. If I just change my diet, that's what it's about. I know someone very close to me who's riddled with pain, and she has no idea And when I say no idea, of course, there's elements that she might be aware of. However, her focus is not on the trauma in her body. She doesn't want to know about it. She doesn't want to look at where she is controlling, manipulative, abusive. She's not willing to look at all the things that she's uncomfortable with, to look at her relationship and the lies connected to that and the abuse from that, to look at where she's controlling of her children, controlling of where and what she does, controlling of who she lets in and who she doesn't. And that is very common when you've had extreme abuse. It's not wrong. You're not wrong. It takes bravery to go, okay, I thought it was all about the food. What if it's not? Because I've been working on this food concept for such a long time and my body's, it's still not really changing. I mean, there's ebbs and flows, but I've still got this health crisis. So let me look at how much I'm truly suffering, how much it hurts me when I start to acknowledge what's truly going on between my relationship and with my partner and my relationship with my kids. Let me look at how miserable I truly actually am. Because one of the things, if you've created something where you have almost died or potentially can die, one of the questions that I always ask is, what are you dying to get out of? Or what are you dying to do that you're not doing? As I said, trauma work takes courage, takes bravery, because initially you have to look at all the things that you've bought about yourself that may be true. But if you get it from a place of, oh, okay, that's where I'm doing control. Oh, okay, that's where I'm being superior. Oh, okay, that's where I'm, doing this or that. But not from a judgment, just from, okay, now I know. Now I know why I don't really have any friends. Now I know why my relationship isn't what I want it to be. Oh, now I know why my kids can't wait to get out of the house and make any excuse to leave the house. And instead of making you bad and wrong, how about congratulating yourself and going, wow, I'm willing to look at this. It takes courage, takes bravery. And then you can look at, what can I choose different? And maybe this person could look at doing some trauma work, not just going to a chiropractor and thinking that'll fix it. If this person doesn't look at why her body is so crippled, if she's not willing to look beyond just the physicalness and seeing it just as a physical problem, some people have, for example, myself, how I responded to trauma was I created situations that put me in financial hardship. I had a parent who, when I was at my weakest, just given birth, said that I had to get on a plane and because she had done so much for me, I had to get on a plane just for 2 weeks. And because I didn't have boundaries and I was just coming out of a domestic violence relationship, just given birth, I felt like I had no choice. And so I went for that 2 weeks. And then as soon as I got there, I was told, I'm not coming back, I'm not going to help you, and I've organised some lawyers for you. And I just broke down. No money to get back. I had set up a beautiful home. I wasn't in debt. And now I'm finding myself in $50,000 of debt. Now, it's very easy to blame that person. How could they? How could they, when I've just given birth, put me in that vulnerable position? That's abusive. That's mean. I could blame. But what created that was because I'd come out of a very long domestic violence relationship, I was weak, I was vulnerable, I was traumatized, I was totally disassociated. Add to that giving birth, just 2 weeks out, I didn't have support because part of that domestic violence relationship, and when I say they, I'm not meaning that in a blame way. But what gets created with domestic violence is that you get so embarrassed about their behaviour that you separate from family and friends. And so because of that, my quote-unquote sickness, that happened. And another occasion, get myself back on track, write a book, and had a beautiful opportunity to go overseas. Same thing happened. I had actually set up and it was a beautiful time in my life. I was like, wow, I've written a book. It's finally like the past is over and I'm going for it. And I go overseas and I've set up something that I can actually pay for in entirety because I'd borrowed money to print the books out. And I had secured an event that would not only cover the books but cover the cost of the travel and accommodation and everything. But when I get over there, I hear about another family member, well, actually it's the same family member, who's creating all sorts of problems at home. So I have to abort and fly home earlier. And so now I'm in debt again because of this person's choices. Now, I didn't realize even at that time I was still disassociated. I was still traumatized. I didn't realize that I didn't have access to a greater possibility. I was just in survival mode. And also there was all that positivity, like it's behind me now and I'm doing something good with my life. And all of that was there too. But I was still massively disassociated, had no idea. I thought I was actually managing things really well. And yes, I was in a lot of ways. So it's not about blaming others. And just like this other person, she can't blame her body for getting sick or blame the different modality she tried to fix herself, right? And she probably has no idea how disassociated she is. So if you're willing to do the work, it takes bravery. As I said, I did. I did it. I'm so proud of myself. When I say I did it, I'm still obviously on the journey. There's still things that come up every now and then, but I've pretty much gotten to myself to the stage where, for example, if I had just given birth and someone said that to me, I'd say, actually, no, it doesn't work for me to travel when I've just given birth. And I absolutely get that you need to go and sort out your home and that you're going to come back in 2 weeks. No worries. I'll organise respite. I'll organise, my dad to come over, or I'll go to my dad. But I hadn't been taught these things. My mum had no help from her mum. And so she was not able to, her mum didn't have her back, she didn't have her back, and she couldn't have my back. Now, of course, there's always two sides to a story. In her world, she was probably thinking that she's realised, she's seen the writing on the wall and she needs, I'm going to have this abuse in my life forever via an ex-partner. Better have it, on her home territory. She and she's correct about that. She's correct in that it was ongoing. And it was. And so she was just doing the best she could. It's not about making my mum wrong. But it's recognising, actually, I don't have a financial problem. I was always paying my rent. I was always managing things well. And yes, there were these, occasions in my life that caused these debts. But actually, I raised 5 kids and put them through, good schools at times, private schools. There was always food on the table. The power was always on. And yes, there were these brief moments in time towards the end when I left the domestic violence relationship where I had incurred extra costs because of courts, moving out of homes unexpectedly because of domestic violence, or they were asking me to move out because of they wanted to sell the property. So it's just the same as that family member that has her health crisis. Mine was financial. My trauma manifested as financial. Her trauma has manifested as physical problems. We need to be willing to look at what created that. And I also had to look at what was it that, one of the things with trauma is that we have to control our environment. One of the things with trauma is that we like to conclude things, to feel safe, to have certainty. One of the things with trauma is that we fight for the rightness of our point of view. I'm sure my mum would have all those thoughts. I've done so much for you. She has. I was just doing the best I could. She did. But is she willing to ask the question, was it a kindness to move me out of a home that I've paid for, not in debt, set up, just furnished, just given birth 2 weeks? Was it kind? And some people aren't willing to actually look at that. And as I said, it takes bravery. And I'm really proud of myself because I have looked at all aspects of what choices I've made, how I could have made it better. I wish I could have gone when she announced that. Sorry, not going back, and I'm not paying for you to get back to your home. I wish I had something else where I could have rung someone else and gone, what do I do? I don't want to be here. I didn't sign up for this. And now I've got all these extra court cases and all these extra court bills. I don't want to do this. Help. But I didn't have that. I wasn't brought up with that. I had just come out of a 9-year domestic violence relationship. I didn't have access to my boundaries. I didn't have access to say that doesn't work for me. And of course, that creates more shame. Shame that you're choosing something by default that you didn't want to choose. And so my desire to have Beyond Domestic Violence Trauma Transformer and my weekly Zooms is to be that for you. Because chances are, if you're finding yourself in a mess, whether it's financial or your body's gotten to the stage where it's crippled, for example, right? There's a really good chance that that's happening to you too, that you weren't brought up to have boundaries. You weren't educated. You didn't have dolphins around you. And like me, if it was domestic violence, they've pushed away everyone in your life. And then, of course, you're feeling so bad. Like one of the things that happened for me was I was continually moving due to, as I said, the domestic violence, or it was because of the property, the rental property being sold. And I had a particular family member, well, actually a few family members, laugh. Oh, there's Grace again with a new phone number. Oh, there's Grace again with a new address. There she is again. Ha ha ha. And now I realize, wow, that is so unkind. To know someone is suffering, who would want to change their numbers and the cost and the hassle involved in doing that? Who would want to move 5 kids continually every few, months or years and the cost involved with that? Who would truly choose that? And so this is where, as you start to develop and start to get strong, you can look at that and go, oh my gosh, that's mean. And then you can look at who are the dolphins in your life. It starts with recognizing, are you being hijacked by a pedal? Do you have an inner critic, your inner psychopath, telling you terrible things about you that you're believing? Is your body having a post-traumatic response that's actually allowing you to release that trauma? Now, it's amazing for me. I did all the sort of head work, and now I'm in that energy of releasing trauma from the body. And I've been doing that for the last sort of year and a half. And I cannot tell you. Think of someone who's incredibly overweight, and with every kilo they lose, they become a different person, don't they? They become a healthier person, a happier person. They get compliments. They're thriving, and it's just getting better and better and better. It's the same with trauma. you have this weight of trauma in your body. And it might be, like for myself, it's physical weight that I've put on, right? But it might be that your way of dealing with this, that you get very skinny and you lock in. You know, if you've got trouble with your joints, that is locked in trauma, solidified trauma. If you've got locked in joints that are actually solidifying, in other words, they're getting malformed, that is you holding so tightly onto your trauma that it's calcifying on top of each other, that there's more and more and more and more and more added to it. And all I can say is it's a journey. It's worth it. I'm feeling better and better and better and better. And now what's so beautiful is I've broken the trauma cycle. I am the parent that I wish I had for my kids. I'm teaching them about these energies. I've got their back, and so therefore they can have their own backs. It's possible to break the cycle of trauma. It takes courage. It's a long rescue, especially if you've had domestic violence. If you're willing to do the work, you will have a life that you can't even imagine. My life has gotten better and better and better, and I've got beautiful people around me now. And I'm willing to physically separate from those that are abusive to me. I won't energetically separate, but I will choose to physically separate as a kindness to me. And I'll equally celebrate and enjoy the dolphins around me who have my back, who empower me, who are with me in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that totally get that I have post-traumatic stress. And they don't make me a wrongness. And what you've got to get is if you're getting that from someone else, there's a really good chance that they're holding on to a whole bunch of trauma as well. And that's not to say that you excuse it. In fact, what I've found is that when I notice other people and their abusive tactics, if I name it, I don't feel anything like icky or anything. It's like, oh, there's the sun. There's an abusive person. There's a kind person. It doesn't have a charge. It only has a charge if you have trauma yourself and you're not in the center of the flower anymore. So, first question, as always, ask, hey, is this my body having a post-traumatic response? And that will help you see the situation for what it is. Because I had the experience where I was so not trusting other people that I assumed when I felt really weird, it must be because they're weird, like they're gonna hurt me. And I've noticed that that's not true. Sometimes it's just that you're so safe with them that your body goes, okay, we're safe. We can let go of this now. So I wish you every happiness. And if you have pain in any aspect of your body, please get that if you don't let go of that pain, you're actually opening yourself up to a life of suffering, because not all the extra traumas are just going to stack on that trauma. You can break free. I've done it, and I'm in the process of still doing it, but I've done it enough that my life is joyous, and I know I have my back. I know I'm not going to choose an abusive partner anymore. I know that I can, because I've healed myself, there's not going to be any financial issues, because that was my, quote unquote sickness. Just pulled in people that abused me financially. I remember a situation where I was moving from one house and into another, and I had the choice of getting a smaller home for less money because one of my kids was going to join the Defence Force. And so I contacted my dad and I said, hey, Dad, is it okay if, my son just stays with you for a couple of months and then he'll be off? And I said, it's no problem at all if that doesn't work for you. I said, but I need to know because I can't afford financially. I wasn't in debt. I said, but I can't afford financially to move him to you and then move him to somewhere else. That will put me behind. And I truly had no issues. And he said, nope, that's fine. And then that other party in the family, unbeknownst to me organised a room in the home that actually couldn't work for my son for reasons that I had mentioned privately. And so we get there and it was the same energy as when I got to my mum's place and the rules changed. And so I had no choice in that moment, had already paid, back in financial problems. And that happened because I didn't have my back. I thought it was enough to just okay it with my dad and mention to him why he couldn't be in a certain room and why he had to be in another room. I was above board. But then that third party came in, unbeknownst to me, and changed everything and then caused a financial problem for me. So again, it's not about blaming that person. That person was probably thinking, oh, it'll be better for my dad if, that da-da-da. I totally get it. But there was an unkindness because I wasn't notified. And because I wasn't notified, I was again put in financial problems. And it's so easy then to buy that lie that I've got financial problems. But when you actually get the healing, you'll start to see whatever your issue is from a very different perspective. I remember with my counsellor, she said to me, hang on a minute, you raised 5 kids, you had a roof over your head, you paid your bills, and yes, there was a sprinkle of moments where you didn't have cash, and they weren't because you were reckless or you spent money on ridiculous things. It happened legitimately for, choices, etc. that happened, domestic violence, or as I just mentioned before about being forced to move into my mum's home. Now, the beautiful thing is, in that moment, I just went, oh my God, I don't actually have financial problems. The trauma, me being unwilling to have my back, that's what actually caused it. I allowed these abusive people to affect me that way. Now, when I say abusive people, there's good and bad in everyone, but that the choices that they made caused hardship. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually am really good with money. And it was just this massive reframe. So how many of you are buying judgments from other people that aren't actually true? Or if there's elements of it that are true, what if you acknowledged it without making yourself wrong? And what if that's showing up because there's something in your body that's asking for healing? What if there's a trauma there if it comes out? You'll never find yourself being that way with that person ever again. Like I now know, with absolute certainty, none of that's ever going to happen again. Ever. Because I've changed the energy and I've changed my life. I don't have that trauma in my body anymore that sibling can treat me that way anymore. It's just not there. It's not going to happen. I have a team of dolphins. So I'm never going to find myself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or if I do, I've got my back to go, beep, beep, beep. Time to get out. And I wish that for you as well. So have fun this week. And when I say have fun, I'm asking you to be that energy. Even if you're going through a hard time, bring in the energy of fun. And have fun asking, is this sadness a post-traumatic body response? Oh, it is. Okay. All right, beautiful body, let's let this go. Rather than believing that sadness, that wrongness, that angriness, the anger, the depression is actually real and true right now. So let's start getting you to have your own back, because the day that you have your own back, you'll have the backs of your kids and you'll break this cycle. I've done it. You can do it too. Bit of a long one today. As I said, you're welcome to find me at choosinggreater.com. Take care. Bye-bye.